Ukraine's Western allies are meeting in Brussels to discuss further military assistance for Kyiv. US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said they're doing all they can to keep Ukrainian forces supplied with ammunition. He also said the West expects Ukraine to launch an offensive in the spring. The Ukraine Defense Contact Group includes NATO countries and Kyiv's non-NATO backers. Secretary Austin said that allies would remain united and resolute for as long as it takes.
Now, a year ago, Putin assumed that Ukraine was an easy target. Putin assumed that Kyiv would easily fall. And Putin assumed that the world would stand by. But the Kremlin was wrong on every count. Over the past year, Ukraine's soldiers have fought valiantly for their country. Ukraine's people have shown deep courage in the face of Russian cruelty. And countries of goodwill have rallied to defend an open order of rules and rights. Together we seek a world where disputes are resolved peacefully, where sovereignty is respected, where borders are honored, and where civilians are protected.
Well, our correspondent Terry Schultz is at NATO headquarters in Brussels. I asked her what else stood out from that press conference.
What we heard from the Americans there was that they are going to increase coordination of all of these weapon systems and supplies that are being given to Ukraine. They want to make sure that instead of perhaps giving completely new capabilities, that they tie together the ones that have already been sent, and that includes more training for Ukrainian soldiers. It includes more spare parts. It includes, of course, as we've been speaking about, more ammunition. They want to make sure that the Ukrainians have everything they need to use the systems they've already got.
And given the increasing concerns about Ukraine running out of ammunition, General Milley was asked whether Kyiv would have to do more with less. What did he say?
Yeah, this was an interesting question because, of course, we have been hearing that Ukraine is running out of ammunition and that Europe and the United States can't possibly make enough to resupply it at the same rate. So this is a really important problem, and it was mentioned by everybody today. So he was asked whether they would have to stop firing as much. And he said that he thinks that with this increased training, again, he wanted to emphasize that that's something being provided, that perhaps they wouldn't need to use as much, and perhaps some of the more efficient weapon systems would not be using as much artillery. So this is something that he said we could hope for, but he said it remains to be seen whether that actually happens.
And the NATO Secretary General, Jens Stoltenberg, has said that Kyiv needs ammunition more than it needs fighter jets, but Kyiv is still asking for those jets. So clearly both parties have differing expectations from this meeting.
I don't think the Ukrainians probably went into this meeting expecting that they were going to get fighter jets. But you know that unless they ask, of course, they're never going to get them. And a month ago, at the last Ramstein meeting, they didn't have any tanks yet. And now today they announced at this meeting that 11 countries are sending tanks. So the Ukrainians know exactly what they're doing. And a diplomat told me yesterday that they are so impressive in these meetings, that they come in, they're very organized, they're very rational, and that they impress everybody. And everybody understands just how urgent this is for them. And that's something that we heard time and again at today's meeting. Everyone saying that with the Russian offensive, the spring offensive, perhaps already underway, now is a really crucial moment in the war.
And Germany's defense minister has said that his country will ramp up the production of ammunition. How complicated a process is that?
Extremely complicated, but the biggest problem I've been hearing from sources is that contracts have not been signed. In fact, Minister Pistorius came out today and said that Germany has signed a contract now to put money on the table for these weapons manufacturers, because without that, they're not going to even start the production. Now, we heard yesterday from Secretary General Stoltenberg that the lag time on producing munitions has now more than doubled. So something that perhaps took a year year to produce before the war now may take more than 2 years. Now, that's not good news for Ukraine. So I was just speaking with the Estonian defense minister, and he says that he proposed in this meeting today for a joint procurement of NATO countries, but to be facilitated also through the European Union and the peace facility. So there are some new ideas coming about how to get the ammunition production scaled up, moved up more quickly. But at the moment, it just hasn't happened as fast as Ukraine needs it to, frankly.
Thank you for that, Terry. Terry Schultz in Brussels.